This is the way it goes. There's a chant in the story that goes like this. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Good. You need to help me. Let's try one more time. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Wait, we're ready. A long time ago, there was a hunter who loved to go out walking in the woods. And one day, nothing like today, a beautiful sunny day, he took his bow and his arrows and he went out walking. And when he had walked farther than he had ever walked before, he saw a tree he had never seen. And in the topmost branches of that tree was the most beautiful bird he had ever seen. It was a tiny golden bird. And in the sunlight, its feathers glistened with a golden glow. And that beautiful bird looked down at the hunter and said, and he started back to the home. But as he was walking back home, he heard a sound coming from his bag that he didn't want to hear. I'm going to teach this bird, thought the hunter. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to teach this bird. He got home and he walked into his kitchen. He took the little bird out of the bag and he put it on the counter. And he thought, I'm going to make birds stew. And he took out his knife and he started chopping that bird up into little bird chunks. And he chopped and he chopped and he chopped. And he chopped and he chopped and he chopped. And when he had chopped that bird into 100 tiny bird morsels, he reached for a pot. And he was just about to throw the bird chunks into the pot when he heard, chop, 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 chop. Chop, 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 chop. What was going on? He took those bird chunks and he put it in the pot. And he filled the pot with water and he put the pot on the stove. He turned the light on under the pot. And he put it down and he got a shovel. And he dug a hole. A deep hole. And when he thought the hole was deep enough, he poured the soggy bird chunks into the hole. And then he covered the hole with dirt. And he stomped down that dirt. And he started back to the house. And he was just about to go into his house when from out of his backyard he heard my favorite part. He got a box, a wooden box. And he went back outside and he dug up all those muddy, soggy bird boxes. And he put them in the box. And then he put the cover on the box and he tied the box tight with a leather thong. And he got a rock and he put the rock on top. He got another leather thong, tied it that way, tight, and he carried that box to the river. When he got to the river, he waded out into the middle of the stream and he dropped the box and he watched it sink. And he listened, but he heard nothing. And he went home. But as that box lay on the bottom of the river current rocked it back and forth, and back and forth, until one day the leather thongs broke, the rock rolled off, and the box floated to the surface of the river. Now the river current carried the box along, and there were some children playing by the shore, and when they saw that box floating by, they were curious. One of the children waded out into the river, and she carried the box to the shore, and she lifted the top off of the box. And as she lifted the top, out of that box flew 100 tiny golden birds. Well, about a year later, that hunter went for a walk. And after a time, he came to a tree that he thought he had seen before. And then he heard a sound that he knew he had heard. He stared at the birds and he stared at them, and finally he said, "I know who you are. Why didn't I know before?" He said, "You are the freedom bird," he said, "and you cannot bury